Namaskar and good morning. Welcome to the third and the final day of this 3-day online training program on disaster management, jointly organized by National Institute of Disaster Management, Ministry of Home Affairs, and Institute of Petroleum Safety, Health and Environmental Management, IPSHEM, ONGC, Goa. Myself, Raju Thapa, and I am working in GMR division NIDM, and I will be the moderator of today's session. So in today's program, we will be having two sessions, technical session and valedictory session. So first, we will be having a technical session where we will be joined by Dr. Pawan Kumar Singh, Joint Advisor, Operation NDMA, Dr. UK Chakravarti, IPSHEM, ONGC, and Dr. Saurav Dalal, World Health Organization, who will be sharing their vast knowledge and experience in their respective field. This will be followed by the valedictory session where we are expecting Major General Manoj Kumar Bindal, VSM Executive Director NIDM, Mr. NN Ray, Head Training Division, IPSHEM ONGC, and Professor Surya Prakash to join us. So during the technical session, there will be presentation. And once the presentation are over, we will have question answer session at the end of each presentation. So participation is very important and kindly raise your question answer in Q&A window only. And if you can raise your question, chat also. So now, without delay, now let us call today's session to order, and let me quickly move on to the technical session. So for our first presentation, we have with us Dr. Pawan Kumar Singh, who will be talking about response system, disaster response and mock exercises. And Dr. Pawan Kumar Singh has been working in National Disaster Management Authority, Government of India since last 12 years. And he is currently holding the charge of Joint Advisor Operations. During his previous and current assignment in NDMA, he is looking after regulatory, policy, and disaster response issues. Job profile includes coordination of response and relief efforts between the state and central agencies. So with these words, I pass on the stage to Dr. Pawan Kumar Singh. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Raju. Good morning, everyone. Am I audible?
Yes, sir, you are audible.
Yeah. Actually, first of all, I would like to seek apology from the participants that I could not complete my presentation yesterday due to some technical glitches. And I want to assure today's panelists that I will not be taking much time, not be stealing in much of their time, and I would be trying to finish it in as early as possible. So I would be sharing my presentation. Yeah. So I hope my screen is visible.
Yes, sir, it is visible.
Yeah. Okay, so yesterday what we have discussed is that I was trying to show this continuum for disaster management. So basically this portrays that the better we are prepared for any emergency or for any disaster, the more coordinated is our response. Because in response there are two very important issues. One is coordination, and second is the unified chain of command. So which we will be discussing later through IRS, but coordination is a very big issue, and that is why it is presumed that the better we are prepared through various preventive, mitigative, and policy regulatory issues, the more coordinated is our response. So this was basically the 6 facets of disaster management: the first three on the pre-disaster cycle, and the last 3 on the post-disaster cycle. This is the mandate of NDMA that we have discussed yesterday, and these are the cross-cutting issues. We have come out with 31 guidelines till date, and these guidelines also include the guidelines on incident response systems, on minimum standards of relief, on use of information and communication technology for both natural and man-made disasters, for medical preparedness, for psychosocial support, and for community-based disaster management. There are certain events and emergencies which are handled through the direct control of National Crisis Management Committee. And at the apex level, we have 3 top decision-making bodies. Besides, as you may be knowing, that the overall coordination of response lies with Ministry of Home Affairs in most of the cases, except in rail, road, and air accidents, in certain biological and public health emergencies, and in drought, hailstorm, and pest attack, in which respective ministry is nodal. Otherwise, MHA is the nodal for coordination of response. However, for certain issues and certain disasters in which there involves a lot of coordination efforts from various central and state agencies, so Government of India has set up 3 committees at the top level. The first one is the Cabinet Committee on Security. This basically oversees all the potential security implications for emerging out of any event, and this also includes potential threat of CBRN disasters. Then the second one is the National Crisis Management Committee, and this committee basically suppose like Cyclone Foni or Kerala floods or any big event which is not in the capacity of the state to coordinate, and then the central government pitches in, and then it brings in all the central resources for the Air Force, for the Army, Navy, Armed Forces, then for all the central ministries, departments, be it telecom, be it power, be it education, health. So overall coordination is done at the cabinet secretariat level, and the command and control is set up there. And then this committee basically gives direction to the crisis management groups. A crisis management group is a concept in which every ministry and of the government of India, including the Ministry of Petroleum and Natural Gas, and every state government and the UTs has to set up a CMG. The CMG at the state level is headed by the chief secretary, and at the government of India level in the respective ministry it is headed by the secretary concerned. So directions are given to these CMGs as what actions they have to take to mitigate the impact of that particular event. And thirdly, it gives direction for a specific action if suppose there are certain issues which are beyond the scope of any ministry as per the allocation of business rules. Those actions are also being directed by NCMC. The third committee, as mandated by Disaster Management Act, is the National Executive Committee. This is headed by Union Home Secretary, and it comprises 14 secretaries of Government of India, including the CIS, the Chief of Integrated Defence Staff. Basically, it's prepare the national plan, it assists the NDMA in discharge of its function, it coordinates with all the line ministries and departments, it makes available all the resources which are required in case of any disaster, and it also ensures compliance of the direction issued by the central government. It coordinates with the armed forces, the Central Armed Paramilitary Forces, the NDRF and other uniform forces. It coordinates with all the early warning agencies, including IMD, INCOIS, National Center of Seismology, Central Water Commission and other agencies. It coordinates with civil defense volunteers, home guards, fire services for all the front line or the first line responders, including the directions to the ministry and the department. So overall coordination, like I said earlier, is with the Ministry of Home Affairs, and so that is why the Union Home Secretary has been purposely made the chairman of this committee, and to bring in support from all the relevant ministries and departments. So all the secretaries concerned are also member of this NEC. So at the national level, the National Disaster Management Institutional Mechanism, basically, like I told you, if you see on the left hand side, there is CCS, NCMC, and also NEC, which gives directions to the states and UTs through CMGs. And then there are designated nodal ministries which have been identified for a particular hazard. So to bring in the management aspect, to bring in the mitigation aspect. And then on the right hand is the overall coordination with Ministry of Home Affairs. NDMA has a very major role in coordinating with the designated nodal ministries. It coordinates with the NCMC and CCS. It coordinates with MHA. And then on the right bottom is the coordination with the armed forces, the paramilitary forces, the NIDM, and also the National Disaster Response Force. At the state level Disaster Management Coordination Committee, if you see on the left panel is central government ministries and departments, on the right is NDMA. Both of them jointly gives direction to the state government, give advice to the state government. The state government, like NEC, has a state executive committee which is headed by the chief secretary. And then there is a relief commissioner, and relief commissioner basically coordinates with the state emergency operations center. And then there are state line departments and other agencies which are responsible for disaster management specific functions, like we have outlined in the National Disaster Management Plan, the job of the central government, various ministries and departments, and job of the state government. The further delegation at the state government level is done by the state government to respective ministry for line departments like PWD, drinking water, health, education, to other line departments. So this is a coordination mechanism at the state level. So as per the Disaster Management Act, there are certain responsibilities for all the central ministries and departments. The four major one I have picked. The first one includes to take measures necessary for prevention, mitigation, preparedness, and capacity buildings. And all these measures have to be dovetailed into their developmental planning and projects. Then they have to allocate funds for such actions which emerge out of the disaster management plan of the ministry and department. And also they have to prepare a plan which has to be as per the act, which has to be updated annually. So these are the 14 nodal ministries and departments. If you see serial number 10, it is industrial and chemical disaster, for which Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change is designated at the nodal ministry for management and also for the mitigation part. And it is also the nodal ministry for in case of any eventuality and how to coordinate with the response. So this is how the system is built in which response in the major earthquake, cyclones, tsunamis is with the Ministry of Home Affairs. And in certain cases, like I told, for biological disasters, for industrial and chemical, for rail, road, aviation, this is with the respective line ministry. at the Government of India level. Here are the certain agencies in which have been designated at the national agencies for forecasting and early warning. For cyclone, it is the India Meteorological Department. For tsunami, it is the Indian National Center for Ocean Information Services, INCOIS, which is in Hyderabad. Then for floods, it is Central Water Commission with Ministry of Water Resource and Ganga Regeneration. And for landslide, it is GSI. Avalanche, it is SASE, and heat and cold wave, it is again IMD. One more agency is there, which is called National Center of Seismology, which has come up very recently under Ministry of Earth Sciences, which is the nodal for earthquakes. So basically, Earth Sciences is having three agencies: IMD, INCOIS, and NSC, which are responsible for specific hazards, giving early warning. This slides basically tells about the disaster response operational setup. So in case of any event or when event is triggered, the National Crisis Management Committee, if it is activated, it seeks inputs from all the relevant ministries and departments through their secretaries. And also it is a two-way process. Ministry of Home Affairs has given guidance how to go ahead with the particular coordination effort. And also Ministry of Home Affairs gives inputs to NCMC. These inputs are basically gathered first from the early warning agencies, if you see on the top left, and then these agencies gives simultaneous warning to MHA control room, which is called which is at the national level, which is called National Emergency Operations Center, or NERC, and then it also gives information to the state control rooms, SEOCs. So it gives to MHA and also to the states. Then it is a reciprocating process. States also give input. If suppose there is a localized phenomena, it gives input to the MHA. And then depending upon the situation, MHA gives inputs if required to NCMC, if it is on an escalated level. And otherwise, the directions and the logistic for response coordination is triggered from downward up. And state government basically provides the information to the Ministry of Home Affairs. And then, like I told, there is a crisis management group in which Chief Secretary is the nodal, and he takes the stock of the situation regularly of that particular event. And then this SEOC is basically helped by the District Emergency Operations Center. So we have a three-tier structure, like we have for NDMA, SGM, and DDMA. We also have for Emergency Operations Center, the NERC at the national level, which is soon being upgraded to ICRER, which is called Integrated Control Room for Emergency Response, and that will be that is in the process of being formalized. And then at the state level, we have SEOC, which is called State Emergency Operations Centers, and then at the district level, it is called DEOC. And then basically these inputs are also collaborated by the inputs which are given for ideas, like you must have heard for recent oil spill in the near Sri Lankan coast, which was basically coordinated by the Coast Guard. And they basically come under Ministry of Defense, and Ministry of Defense, all the activities for Army, Navy, Air Force, and Coast Guard, it is called IDS, which is called Integrated Defense Staff. They also have a control room. They give input on particular operation if it is being done by any of the three armed forces or by the Coast Guard. For empty diamond ship, like I told you, for Sri Lankan coast, it was the information was given. For response, we have a three-tier mechanism. We have a national agency called NDRF. Then besides, if suppose help is required from other agencies also in case of a big event, then the armed forces are also requisitioned, and then central armed paramilitary forces and other central agencies as and when required. At the state level, many of the states are having SDRF, that is the State Disaster Response Force, and other central agencies. At the district level, it is the civic administration, the local police, civil defense, fire and emergency services, the home guards, and also the local community NGOs and volunteers are used. And then we have a scheme called Abda Mitra, which is the flood community volunteers. They are being used extensively in case of, earlier they were used for floods, but now they are being used for earthquakes, they are being used for cyclones, and they have been found to be very handy by the state, and all the states have appreciated for Abda Mitra. So they also act like community volunteers, and so this is a three-tier mechanism for response. Yesterday you had a presentation from NDRF, and NDRF basically the 12 battalion right now, and 4 more battalions have been sanctioned and they are in the process of being raised. And NDRF is present at 40 locations, 12 battalions at, and then besides that there are RRCs, that is called Regional Response Centers. And these RRCs are in places in which battalion is not there, so as to have the footprint throughout India. So NDRF is present throughout India through RRCs. And this is basically a adaptationist force with 3 battalions each from BSF and CRPF, and 2 each from CISF, ITBP, and SSB. This is basically mandated for a specialized response. They have all the equipments, And for particular response system, they go along with that equipment, be it floods, so that particular equipments are there. For collapse structure rescue, and also for medical first responders, for any type of eventuality, they have the equipment and they meet out the eventuality on that scale. Then this force basically has also involved itself in training and community capacity building in peacetime, in which there is no operation. Each battalion consists of 1149 personals with a 45 personal. One team have 45 personals, and there are 18 self-contained teams in each battalion. And each team contains medical officers, engineers, paramedics, technicians, electricians, dog escorts, and canine handlers, others. So this is the presence of NDRF throughout India, and the area of jurisdiction they cover is also being depicted here. And like I told, there are 45 teams, 45 members in one team. And for specifically, if we talk about CBRN disasters, it consists of tech support team of 6 personals, detection and assessment cum evacuation for 6 personals, rescue and evacuation for 7 personals. There are 2 teams for rescue and evacuation. Then for decontamination team for 6 personnel, then admin support, and also for medical unit for 2 paramedics. Then there are shortcomings. Basically, why do we have an unified chain of command and also for the coordinated response, like I told in the beginning of my presentation? Because what has been seen, we have been facing disasters over a period of years. Basically, because of these two issues, if they are not followed properly, there is a lack. There is a lack of many things, and there are very huge glaring shortcomings if the response is not dealt in a structured manner. So response has to be dealt in a very structured manner, and that is why I have listed down certain shortcomings which we see if we don't follow IRS in any of the systems. So for the first one is the question of about accountability. Who is responsible for what? And then also there is a lack of orderly and systematic planning process. Then there is an unclear chain of command. Who will command what? And suppose the person who is there, suppose there is a mix of army, there is a mix of NDRF, then there is a mix of SDRF, civil defense. So who will be giving the final orders? What has to be done? So chain of command has to be very clear. Then there is no predominant method system for effectively integrating all the interagency requirements. Then there is a, like I told, for coordination with various civil society organizations, with NGOs, and also use of common terminology for different resources, resulting in improper requisitioning and an inappropriate resource mobilization. So considering all these issues, NDMA in July 2010 came out with guidelines on incident response system. This guidelines basically talks about a combination of facilities, equipments, personals, procedures, and communications operating within a common organizational structure. So we have given idea for a staging area. We have given idea for general staff, for command staff, how the structure should be made, who is responsible for what, and this responsibility basically comes out for the management of the existing resources. Many a time it happens that we do have the resource, but we are not able to cater for the resource. Nobody requisition them. So that is why staging area is there. Everything is displayed there. We have these many ambulances. We have these many CAT teams. We have these many fire brigade engines. We have these many. So everything is staged, and then we pick up from them. And as per the constitution of the team, IRT is there. I will show you. So incident response system basically puts everything equally for everyone, and then the assigned role and responsibility to that particular person, depending upon the requirement, the equipment, he has to cater. And as per this, it moves in a very structured and clear chain of command system. So it is basically a management system which is a standardized management system, I would say. And this system basically wants to professionalize the response, because response in a haphazard manner will lead you nowhere. That is the bottom line. Response has to be in a structured fashion, and it calls for a team-based approach. How IITs should be constituted, who should be the nodal for the IIT. I will show you that. And this system is applicable to all type of disasters, and it also encompasses all management functions. You call it for command, for control, for communication, for planning, for resource mobilization, for logistic, and for coordination. And then it also calls for a feedback, what went wrong, how we can improve upon if there is a requirement next time, and what should be our standard modus operandi, what should be the way of approach for dealing with this situation, these type of situations. So IRS basically, like what had been given in the guidelines, it calls for two very important things. One is the response teams at the state, at the district and subdivision and block level, and it also calls for nomination of ROs, which at the state level can be the chief secretary and at the district can be the district magistrate. It calls for the nomination of incident commander, and this till IC and till RO is the command staff. This is called command staff. And then comes the general staff, in which comprises three sections: the operation section, the planning section, and the logistics section. So, and assisting to assist these three sections, the general section is also one of the section is finance section, which assists these three sections. So there is a command staff, there is a general staff, and there is a finance staff. So this is how the structure is made for IRS, and that is why this system is a standardized system, which can be taken into account for all the emergencies. So this is a chart. RO, like I told you, he can be CS at the state level or can be the DM, and then he either himself or he nominates somebody as IC. That IC is basically assisted by on two aspects: for information and for safety, by a liaison officer, and by a deputy IC. He can choose for a deputy IC. And then there are three sections, like I told, on the tail operation, planning, and logistic. This is called the general staff, and to assist is the finance staff. Then certain IRTs are constituted, like you can see for the logistic, the communication unit, the medical unit, the food unit, the supply unit, the facility units, the ground support unit, and also how the operation section will give you about the details of how to operation has to be done by the rail, by the road, by the water, by air. What is the requirement, how it has to be done, what is the shortest way out, how we can reach, what resources do we have. And the planning section for the resource particular purpose will give inputs to the operation section, and then operation section, looking to the inputs of the planning section, will carry out the operation. And this logistic will stage the area, they will give their resources, they will bring in the resources, and these many men are there, these many resources are there, equipments are there. So this is how a system is developed, in which everybody is responsible for a certain thing, and he has to cater for that thing depending upon the resource allocation, and also depending upon the situation which is required to be catered. Situation may vary from time to time, the scale may vary, but this system should be uniform always, because this system gives you two very important things. Like I told you, one is a integrated coordinated response, and second is a unified chain of command. That is the two basic concept for response. If you want to professionalize the response, this is the only way out, and this is how it should be done. The functional responsibility in IRS for responsible officer is basically to primarily for effective response. The commander is responsible for overall in charge of is the overall in charge for the IRS and IRTs and its effective functioning. The operation chief directs and supervises all tactical actions. The planning chiefs collects, analyze data, work out or required resources, and prepare action plan. And the logistic and finance basically provides for logistic support, procurement, and cost accountancy to bring in a cost efficiency method. Then there is also a concept of incident command post. Basically, IC will be located at the ICP, means the incident commander will always sit at the incident command post. There can only be one ICP. Normally, ICP are not relocated once they are structured, once they are put in at a particular place, they are not relocated. Then this ICP is the location in which the primary commander gives the command to all these three chiefs: the operation chief, the planning chief, and the logistics chief. And they, if they have certain queries, they come back again to the commander, like these are the situation and this is the problem, what I should do. They can ask queries to the commander. So this is why it should not be relocated and it should not be redesignated during the process of an event. The ICP or the IC one setup should not be redesignated or relocated. This applies to situation where multiple agencies are there. Like I told you, if there are multiple players, unified command will solve 50% of your problem, because it takes into account all the resources. And then there are multi-jurisdictional incidents also. Suppose it crosses a district, it crosses a state. So what should be the role? So one IC can look out, because he will look that particular event as an event and not into a jurisdictional segments, like this is my area, this is my area. So this is how it has to be done. If you talk about mock exercises, so this I told you for IRS. If you talk about the mock exercises, before that I wanted to show about the recent chemical industrial disasters which has happened in India in last around 6 to 8 months. And I have not taken all of them, but the major one, like we had a blast in Himani Industries in Bharuch, Gujarat, in which on 11th of June, in which one person died and 4 injured. There was a gas leak at the Chirpal group of companies in Ahmedabad, Gujarat, again on 18th of July. This was due to cleaning of chemical waste tank, and they inhaled certain poisonous gases, and the 4 persons were dead. Then there was in an organic chemical private limited company in Palghar district in Maharashtra on 17th of August, in which there was an explosion in reactor. 2 persons died and 4 injured. There was an ammonia gas leak in district Chittoor in AP on 20th of August, in which it was in Hudson Milk Dairy plant. 27 people got ill. And there was a fire breakout in petrochemical factory in Agra, Uttar Pradesh on 7th of November or 7th of September. Basically, this factory used to have a production of solution used in shoe manufacturing. There was no injury, and by grace of God, and there was no casualty. And then there was a blowout in oil well. You may be knowing it much better in Tinsukia district. This is a very flared up event. PM took interest. There was a meeting at NCMC. There was a meeting at PMO level twice. This happened on 27th of May. 30,000 has been given per family as compensation, and 1,610 families were affected. Relief camps were set up. They have just recently, these relief camps have been lifted, and this was a very major event. And then experts were called from abroad also. And this took around 2 to 3 weeks to doze off the fire. And then there was a styrene gas leak in Visakhapatnam district on 7th of May. And this was basically an LG polymer company, and in which 454 people were admitted in government hospital. Many of them got discharged. They didn't have any symptoms. But yes, all these incidents indicate to a particular situation in which chemical industrial situation can arise out or can blow out in a much proportionate manner, in which it can even hamper the residents which are residing nearby, and also can endanger the life of these citizens. So basically, your plant manager, the depot system for oil and natural gas industries, they have an on-site exercises which they conduct very regularly. They follow all the structured norms. They follow all the structured protocols. That is beyond doubt that is very good for on-site system. But what about off-site? So off-site is a very important area for these plants. Like I showed you, many of the events could trigger out, and it could go outside the vicinity of the plant. So basically, NDMA till date has conducted around, I would say, 95 plus chemical industrial exercises since NDMA came into existence. And the basic objective of these offsite exercises are to review the disaster management plans of the states and the district. Like you may be knowing by now that every state government and district and every central ministry need to have a disaster management plan. This basically calls out for evaluating the SOPs which are there in place. Plans and SOPs are two different things. We should never confuse plans with SOPs. SOPs are basically who will do what, how, and when. These are the 4 questions which are answered in an SOP. An SOP basically gives you the operational aspect, what has to be done. If suppose this situation arises, this has to be done. This is called an SOP. Planning has a much broader role. It calls out for various preventive, mitigative, and also the preparedness aspects. Then basically the exercise also calls out for roles and responsibility of all stakeholders. It tried to create awareness among the mass for the effective last mile connectivity, as we call it, by involving NGOs, the communities. What can be the fallout if there is an incident of such nature and such magnitude? And then it also identifies the gaps in resources, manpower, and communication, which has to be again dovetailed into the DM plan when it is updated next year. So basically, we start with the plan, we churn out the SOPs, we find the possible role of all the players, we try to create an awareness scenario, and then we also identify the gaps. We again go back to the plan. So this is a continuous process in which we refine our plans from year to year, from industry to industry, and that is how it can be improved upon. I would like to focus on one particular exercise which we did, state level exercise in Gujarat last year in October 2019. It covered 6 districts. That is a very, if you may be knowing, that is a very high potential MH unit area, and near Vadodara, Valsad, Jamnagar, Ahmedabad, Surat, and Bharuch. And it also considered 216 MH units which are in the vicinity or which are located in that particular area. So basically, these industries, be it a pharma industry, be it a chemical industry, be it a fertilizer industry or anything, they usually handle a huge quantity of hazardous chemicals and store them, transport them to such industrial plants. So if they, like in case of Gujarat, why we chose that location? Because Gujarat is prone both to cyclones, to tsunamis, and also we have seen, as you may be knowing, the Bhuj earthquake. So if we have a very big natural disaster coming up on your way, leave aside chemical gas leakage or chemical blast or blast in reactor. You leave aside that. Even by a natural disaster, if it is triggered by a major tsunami or by a major cyclone or by a major earthquake, a very, very high potential of damage and destruction is there to these industries as they are just on the sea coast. And then basically what we did in the exercise, we simulated an earthquake with a magnitude of 7.7 Richter scale near Bhuj, which had an earthquake, very big earthquake in 2001 for 8 plus Richter scale. And this exercise basically tried to create a scenario which is very close to reality, so that to assess and improve upon the situation, like I told you, what are the objectives and how we can impress upon the situation if suppose we encounter the actual situation in reality. It also takes into account the vulnerable people, how to evacuate them who are living in the vicinity in the offsite area, and how the injured persons can be taken to the hospital, what system should be built in. And basically it calls for an effective coordination, how CMOs will be called, how the resources will be used, the medical people will be used. And the drills were carried out with the support of all the stakeholders. And basically the EOCs, how we do these exercises, we basically activate the SEOC at the Gandhinagar. I'm telling about Gujarat, so the state capital we activate the SEOC. That SEOC activates all the district emergency operation center. We focused on these 6 districts, but they activate all the districts. And if, because suppose you have an bed shortage in Vadodara or in Ahmedabad, so that person can be transferred to the other district in which there is no impact of disaster. Recently, if you have heard, from Vapi to Bhavnagar, they are going, the ferry services has been started. If you go by a sea route, I will tell you one very striking thing in which I observed in this exercise is that from Vapi to Bhavnagar, the sea route is only 22 kilometers, only 22 kilometers, and by land it is around 150, 160 plus. So now they have started ferry recently, 1 month back. The government of Gujarat has started ferry service from Vapi to Bhavnagar. And if there is a possible gas leak at Vapi, Ankleshwar, Surat, Bharuch, that can very well go up to Bhavnagar. And Bhavnagar doesn't have a single chemical industry in its vicinity. So this is the impact. If there is a major earthquake, major cyclone, major tsunami, it can have a wide spread consequences, like what we have seen in Bhopal tragedy and other chemical industrial disasters. So the SEOCs and the DOCs are activated simultaneously, and these SEOCs and DOC coordinates the entire effort, what will happen in the actual situation and how they will function. So till now, till March this year, we actually have a calendar every year. We do physical exercises. We have done around 1,000 plus exercises in all the disasters. And it's like I told you, we have done around 95 exercises specifically on chemical industrial disasters. And all of these exercises are the offsite exercises. And we coordinate with the district magistrate, the district officials, and also with the local people. This year, however, due to COVID, we could not go and do the physical exercises. So what we did, we started doing the tabletop exercises in a virtual mode. So basically, the exercises are done in 3 parts. The first part is the orientation and coordination exercise, which is in D minus 10. Then there is a tabletop, which is D minus 1.
Excuse me, sir.
Yes, Raju.
Sir, sorry to interfere, sir, due to time constraints, sir.
Just this is my last slide. Just give me one more minute. One more minute. And then we have the actual exercise on the D-Day. So these exercises, the orientation and coordination we did, the tabletop we did, and these are the exercises which we have been doing virtually with the different states. Like you can see, we have done for floods, for earthquakes, for landslides, and for different states we have done. And we have done in this financial year, we have done 4 chemical industrial exercise with the state level. The one was for Goa in September. The second one was again in September for Puducherry. And in October, we had one for Himachal Pradesh. And just recently on 10th November, we had it for West Bengal. We had planned more for other states. Basically, it is a demand driven, and the states also has to coordinate. State also has to come forward. But yes, we do put in our resources, and we do commit ourselves for these particular exercises. And that was my last slide. Thank you. Thank you very much. If you have any questions.
Thank you very much, sir, for first. He is from Mumbai Fire Brigade officer, sir. Question is, who is the in the officer or the NDRF officer? Who is the incident commanded officer in such case? Okay, sir. Let me just repeat the question, sir.
Can you please?
The question is,
Yeah.
who is the in charge at big incident, like the fire officer, the first fire arrival officer, or the NDRF officer?
No. See, an incident commander, basically, how it is set up. Incident commander, like I told you, just below the RO. RO first option can be RO can designate IC, or generally the practice is whosoever reaches first is the IC.
Okay.
So generally, it can be army officer also. It can be NDRF officer. Whosoever reaches first is the IC. And suppose the system has structured in such a way, RO can also nominate IC.
Okay, sir. And the last question is, how can community volunteer join the Apda Mitra that you have just talked, and do they get any training and benefit from joining such Apda Mitra?
So for Apda Mitra, see, in phase 1, we had 25 states and we have 30 districts in these 25 states. And we have trained 200 personals in all these 30 districts. So we had a resource pool of 6,000 men. Out of these 6,000, we have already trained around 5,500 we have trained. The states have trained. So the nominal role for these Apda Mitras are given by the state government, the district administration. Their nominal role is also maintained at the district administration for their use. And secondly, any person who is interested in Apda Mitra can go to district administration. He can enroll, get himself enrolled. He will get an emergency kit. No money is paid because civil defense basically as a concept itself does not provide money. However, they get a kit, they get a training, and they can be used very effectively in case of a disaster.
Thank you very much, sir, for a wonderful presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Now, moving ahead, we have with us Dr. UK Chakraborty, IPSHEM, ex-CGM, ONGC, and sir will be discussing about case studies of unconfined vapor cloud explosion in petroleum sector. And sir is highly qualified safety professional and acclaimed trainer in the domain of oil and gas industry, and having over 36 years of experience in health, safety, environmental aspect in petroleum industries, both upstream and downstream sectors. With these words, I would like to pass on the stage to you, sir. Over to you, sir.
Is my presentation visible?
It is, yes, sir. It is showing that, sir, you are starting to share your content. It might take few minutes, sir. Just.
Is it there?
Starting.
But it is already shared. It is.
Sir, now just.
Your voice is getting cut, huh?
It is.
See, I am putting my screen. And then this. Still not there?
It is still showing, sir, starting to share content. Yes, sir. It is visible now.
Is it full screen?
No, not yet, sir. Yes, now it is full screen, sir.
Okay. I'll just check whether the slides are changing or not. Okay, thank you, Mr. Raju. And I must compliment and, put my gratitude towards NIDM and IPSHEM Goa for giving me this opportunity to speak before you. I will be talking on some case studies on vapor cloud explosion. See, this is, there are many types of fire disasters, as you have been learning from since last 2 days. And but the devastating effects are actually from the situations in petroleum sectors, and that is coming from unconfined vapor cloud explosion. So we will just see that how we learn some lessons from these incidents that has occurred worldwide. And at the end, we will see that what are the learnings we can take. But because we always know that 20% reasons are actually responsible for 80% of the accidents that are happening. So if we know that 20% only of the incidents are 20% are the causes of all 80% accidents, that is the reason what we see is that is something that is happening in London accidents, Bunzfield accidents, and something is happening in the Jaipur. Almost similar kind of repetitions of the causes are happening. That means that we are not actually learning. If we are learning, then definitely we could have prevented those incidences. At least we would have done something different. So let us start my presentation by saying that accidents does not spare anybody. Even in actual war, more number of people die in accidents than in actual war. So this is a very real statistics that even in actual war, the accidents actually causes more casualties than the actual war incidents. So coming to that, since we are not learning, and somebody said very nicely that those who cannot remember the past are condemned to repeat it. Meaning is that we sometimes forget the past incidents, what has actually happened, and don't take actually the corrective measures for the future accidents. So we must learn the incident, but learning is an art. Learning is not always easy. Somebody learns some incidents, he is involved in some incident and learns some lessons, and then he may be transferred out or going somewhere else. He takes his learning along with him. So that learnings are never kept as a database, so that this is actually known to others, and they can take actions at the time of any incident of similar nature. So so there is something called sometimes we say that there are a lot of mistakes. I don't think there is any mistakes, only lessons to be learned. Now, what are those lessons? Number one lesson is that technology alone cannot provide a solution. So sometimes we think that we have a high technology of equipments and alarm system, trip systems, emergency shutdown systems in the process plant, and this will save us. But not always technology, because everything can fail. Nothing is perfect. So and everything has got its failure rate. So sometimes we over rely on the technology and forget the software part. That means the behavioral part and on the people's part, that is sometimes missing. That is why we have to see both the hardware as well as culture and attitude of the people. This is very, very important. Now, what we should focus, basically, we should focus on those learnings which are not known yet, because sometimes we come out, we know that okay, this has happened that way in Assam, that has happened in that way. So we as if we know that, but sometimes we miss certain issues which are not kept in our database as a matter of learning. So those issues needs to be taken into consideration. Then high risk of occurrence. So what are those situations which is having higher risk? Sometimes we forget that, like in Jaipur, it is said that risk assessment has not taken into consideration some some scenarios that has happened. So because nobody might have thought of those scenarios that can happen. So and from now onwards, at least from Jaipur onwards, that our risk assessment system must change and include those scenarios. Similarly, sometimes new facts are coming. New facts means we do not know that in case of a full surface tank fire, full roof without any roof, full tank fire, what sort of protection system we should have? No protection system will actually work, and in that case, the firefighting becomes very, 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 very difficult. So in those situations, you must have heard that Now, MBLAL committee has said that HBLR, high volume long range monitors should be there of higher capacities and all, depending on the situation to be handled. So similarly, there are many issues, that there are many problems which are hidden in that accidents. So those things must be brought into consideration, because my whole aim will be to bring those issues which were not actually known, which are normally neglected or not learned as a database. So those things must be brought into attention. Okay, now if you see that world's accidents, the basic causes, prime causes are very common to all incidents. One is that failure to follow, let down procedures. Now just before my lecture, this was discussed that SOPs are not being followed, because SOPs are getting confused and with the safety instructions. Now, safety instructions and SOPs are two different things. SOPs must be impregnated with safety, embedded with the safety precautions. Then only it becomes an SOP. So similarly, failure to develop adequate work procedure, this is also important. People do what they normally do. So they don't see the SOPs, and SOPs are made in offices and just pasted in the workplace. But the person who is actually using it are actually not aware of those SOPs, or may not be following that. So all sorts of communication gaps are responsible for that. And there are many incidents from where you can know that there is a wrong identification of causes very big accidents. There is a book called What Went Wrong. If somebody can note down that one, What Went Wrong, by Trevor Clays. This is a very big, very good chemical engineer he was. So the Trevor Clay's book on what went wrong, you will find many number of incidences, smaller incidences, which actually can cause bigger incidences, and what are the reasons for those incidences have been identified. Similarly, failure to depressurize, failure to isolate properly. In case of leak is happening, you don't know where to isolate and from where to isolate that leakage. So leak continues for hours, and generally making a vapor cloud explosions and sort of that, vapor cloud accumulation and further explosion. Similarly, there are many other reasons. I will not go through these details. There are many other reasons that has been put here, and these are all because of all these that accidents have happened actually. And there are many issues, and one of the issues also have been identified is that the training issues, training and awareness issues. People are not aware that such a thing can happen. So every time we caught in a situation where we are seeing a new thing or new way of doing things. Already, we are reinventing the wheels. So if we start learning from the previous accidents, and really we are learning, I don't think we are learning much. But since if we are learning, then those incidents can be prevented in future, right? Now let us come to the main discussion is that what happened. Main discussion is on vapor cloud explosion. Now, what is a vapor cloud explosion? Let us see little detail before I go for the case studies of some accidents. Now, the vapor cloud explosion occurs when a large quantity of the substance or the material, which is flammable material I am talking here, is released to the atmosphere and mixes with air. And the large quantities, if it is catching fire immediately, then it won't be a vapor cloud. It will be a flash fire, right? The way we see that kerosene vapors, going from one point to another, and suddenly it finds an ignition source, so it flashes back. But vapor cloud explosion is little different, because the large quantities are allowed to accumulate, meaning is that there is a delayed ignition. So immediate ignition will cause a flash fire situation, and delayed ignition can result into a vapor cloud explosion, because the enough vapor cloud has been formed, and that suddenly it gets an ignition. Most of the time, the ignitions are not within the plant, within the process, within the chemical industry. Sometimes it is outside. Outside means offsite ignitions. I mean, it has found its way to the outside the plant boundary, and from there it found an ignition source. Sometimes from a vehicular traffic, some vehicular spark. There could be so many ways, so many ignition sources that we can talk about slowly. Then release could be from a pipe, storage vessels, or a process reactor. This is possible. Now, mostly we see this sort of vapor cloud explosion is in LPGs. Liquefied petroleum gases are actually known for causing UVC. What is that called? Vapor cloud explosion. Now, unconfined vapor cloud explosions are those that is happening in the open air. But if it is a confined explosion, if it is in enclosed spaces, then we say it is a confined explosion, right? Now, unconfined vapor cloud explosion particularly happened in the air, open air, and there some amount of this congestion is also should be there, so that it actually accumulates there, particularly in the low wind condition. Low wind condition, mostly these petroleum vapors are heavier than air, and they settle and accumulate along the ground. It does not disperse much, and that causes the vapor cloud to increase, and if it is finding an ignition source, it can cause an explosion. So explosion has got two aspects. One is called deflagration, another is detonation. You must be aware of these two terms. Deflagration is actually an explosion, but it's the speed of this flame front, flame moving at a speed lower than the speed of the sound. That is basically the deflagration. It is a rapid auto ignition, but it is slower than the speed of the sound. But if it is higher than the speed of the sound, then it causes detonation. Detonation, something what we know about from explosives. Now, chemicals, particularly the petroleum products, they work in a deflagration mode most of the time. But sometimes also detonation is possible. But research have shown that mostly deflagration was the reason for this explosion, and detonation has not occurred, because detonation, what is that called? After effects are of different nature than deflagration. Detonation after effect will burst the things out. Deflagration will burn the things out. So there are difference between deflagration and detonation, right? Now, what is the necessary condition for a vapor cloud explosion? This is very important to understand that. And vapor cloud explosion, many places it has happened. It has happened in Boonsfield, it has happened in Jaipur, it has happened in ONGC Uran and Hazira. Many places this vapor cloud explosion has occurred. So what was the necessary condition? One of the necessary condition we must learn that dispersion. If it is a low wind condition and early morning, late night, so that kind of situation, then the dispersion does not take place so fast. So what happens, because it is heavier than air, it remains along the ground and gets accumulated before it finds an ignition source, right? Now, in what is called Boonsfield case, it has found an ignition source from a pump house. The pump house is something 500 meters away. And in Jaipur, it has found out from an administrative building, or as per report, could be a vehicle on the road. So from there, it got an ignition source. So for vapor cloud explosion to take place, 1 to 5 minutes times delay is sufficient. You see that how small this delay is. Within 1 to 5 minutes, it can cause an delayed ignition of the vapor cloud, and a vapor cloud explosion can take place. Just imagine in Jaipur, it has happened that vapor cloud was allowed to form because nobody was there to isolate. Everybody is down with the vapor. So it went up to 1 hour 15 minutes time. So 1 hour 15 minutes, it was sufficient. You can imagine the amount of vapor cloud that has been that has occurred. I will come to that case a little later. And then some of the vapor cloud, if it is not within the flammable range, then it cannot catch fire. Again, VC cannot be possible if it is not within the flammable range. So in most of the cases, particularly petrol, motor spirit type of products, it has been found that the flame front or the lower flammability limits had reached something around 400 meters away. So that means the flammable area has been widely, it has become very wide in case of these vapor cloud explosion. Okay. And then, as I said, it is basically deflagration or detonation. But one most important thing is for vapor cloud is that some amount of congestion is required. Congestion in the sense, in Bun's field, there was a lot of trees around. So trees were acted as a what is called as a congestion, and that causing lot of turbulence in the vapor cloud, and that turbulence actually responsible for devastation, particularly on ignition. Other condition is that, as I said, low wind speed, a large cloud can be formed. Stable weather, stable means without low wind condition and without any what is called mixing possibility. So dispersion is very less. So this is possible in case of in such climate weather. So that's why we always tell the plant people, the process plant people, the industries, that these are the times in a year we should be very, very careful that those times, if such a situation occurs, then it will have a devastating effect. So we have to be very, very careful in operating the plants in such a way that it doesn't happen in winter, doesn't happen in late night, or doesn't happen in early morning. Such situation, such conditions should be avoided. Similarly, cloud composition is very, very important. If it is unsaturated molecules, then it will have a wide range of flammable range. You understand flammable range. Wide range means it can catch fire in any what is called proportion, any proportion. If I can give you an example of natural gas, which we use in houses, it is lower explosive limit is 5% and upper explosive limit is 15%. That means 5 to 15, it can catch fire in any proportion, right? Along with air, it can catch fire with any proportion. And congestion is very, very important. And another important is that high pressure. At what pressure it is coming out from the source. Suppose from the tank it is coming out, or the vessel it is coming out from a pressure vessel, so that you will have a lot of mixing before it becomes a vapor cloud. So such is the situation will be responsible for a vapor cloud explosion. This is the flammability limit, as I have already told. I will not go very detailed on that. That within a particular range of proportion, that means 5 in case of natural gas, as I said, 5% to 15%. 5% means 5% natural gas and 95% air. Similarly, 15% natural gas and 85% air. So that is the range which is called explosive range or flammability range. Now, this is another issue I want to take, that in case there is any leak, how do you know there will be a, what is that called, unconfined vapor cloud explosion? How do you know? In case of, as I said, in case of immediate ignition, that fireball can be there. In case of, suppose explosion is not there, immediate ignition, then jet fire could be there. But if it is a delayed ignition, as I was telling you before, if the ignition is delayed, that means the vapor cloud is allowed to form and accumulate before it gets catches fire, then there is a chance of unconfined vapor cloud explosion, right? So this is very, very important. This is a event tree, you know, event tree and fault tree, right? So this is an event tree from one event, the release event, that loss of containment, I can come out with the actually possible scenarios of disaster scenarios, right? As I said that, again, this is the same one in case of LPG, that delayed ignition is dangerous. This is a learning. This is a learning that delayed ignition is dangerous, much more devastating than the immediate ignition. Okay. Now, explosion modeling we use for TNT approach. Okay, we use TNT approach. Can anybody guess that how much TNT equivalent? So any chemical, any petroleum products release and catches fire. In case of explosion, from the amount of chemical that is released, we can find out the TNT equivalent TNT. So can you tell me that in Jaipur fire, how much is the TNT? How much? It was actually 1,000 metric ton that has come out. 1,000 metric ton is calculated equivalent to 20 TNT, 20 TNT equivalent. Okay, 20 tons of TNT equivalent, right? So it is a huge. It works as an for explosion, right? So we can calculate that TNT equivalent by this formula. And what are the effects? Before I go to the case studies, what are those effects? So explosion has got a, as I said, if I go before, you see explosion has got, if you see this slide, explosion has got initially the visible part, and then invisible part, and there is a pressure wave. So pressure wave is created that, and then pressure waves of different PSIG overpressures are actually created. We say overpressure effect. Let us come to that. Overpressure effect. So overpressure means more than, suppose I say 5 psi overpressure, that means it is more than 5 psi more than the normal atmospheric pressure, that is 14.7 psi, right? So it is over and above the atmospheric pressure. That is why we say it is an overpressure, right? And it can cause structural damages. It can cause eardrum punctures. Eardrums have been, people have died because of eardrum punctures also. And then there are missile effects, thermal shock, thermal effect, ground shocks, and craters have been created. So there are many explosion effects it is possible. And normally in risk assessment, what we calculate is that basically the structural damage and the eardrum puncture. Now structural damage is that, let us say 5 psi overpressure. You know that how much structural damage will be there? This is actually 50% lethal and almost heavy destruction of structures can be there. So suppose if a building is collapsed or an office is collapsed, you know how many people are housing there. So they also will be dying because of this explosion. So this has actually happened in other places. I will just see that this is the overpressure damage criteria. This is not to just to for information that there are damage criteria that is available, and for each damage criteria, overpressure damage criteria, we know that how much destruction it is possible, right? Let us come to the case study straight. One case study which is not which has not been widely published, but this has actually happened in a tank farm, that a major explosion that has occurred, almost 2 people died and 3 are injured. And this is a motor spirit, again petrol transfer from one tank to another tank with a portable pump, and his motor is connected with the non-flame-proof electrical junction box within the dike. You see that electrical switchboard is there. You see this is a pretty ordinary switchboard, and the condition is very, very poor. So this has been connected with a motor, and that is used for transferring, motor spirit from one tank to another. See, and then the manhole was actually opened for work, and pumping was going on, and this lot of vapor cloud, because manhole was opened, lot of vapor cloud was generated, and it was in the vicinity of the tank, because motor spirit, it is heavier than air. So around the tank it has it has accumulated, and then at certain point of time the people have stopped the pump because there is suction failure. So when it gone the liquid level gone below, so they wanted to stop the transfer operation of the MS. So as soon as you stop the pump, then the spark has been created from that non-flame proof, this electrical switch, and that caused the fire in that. Okay, so there is a huge explosion, and that has occurred. This is very simple operation which we normally do in the process plant, in the refineries. But such a thing happened in that can happen. So the learning is, what is the major lapses from this? The major lapses is no proper job safety analysis. Before carrying out a job, before giving a work permit, normally what we do is that we carry out a job safety analysis. So what are the hazards available there, present there, and what are the mitigation measures are in place? So those things are to be found out. Similarly, non-adherence to SOP. SOP was not adhered. Work permit was given from unauthorized opening of manhole. This is another issue. All the manholes were not to be opened, but they have opened all the manhole, although it was not inside. It was only pumping. No persons are working inside. So similarly, non-flame proof switchboard. This is another dangerous thing in a work permit. How we have allowed non-flame proof in a hazardous area, because it's a zone 2 hazardous area around the tanks. So there, how we have allowed. Then no MOC, because this water is getting water line. See, this MS was getting transferred through a water draw-off line. Okay, in the tanks. The tanks, we have water draw-off lines also. So instead of a normal route, they were trying to take it through water drain draw-off line, and this was not done with the permission of the higher ups or authority. That means there is no management of change procedure have been followed. So this is very, very important, that we must follow management of change procedure. This is what is the learning. Coming to Bunsfield in 2005, we know that these incidents in UK, and this has actually, before Jaipur this has happened, and Jaipur also we found similar situations were repeated. Most of the more or less similar situation was repeated. So that was an overflowing of storage tank, and this was a cone roof storage tank. Cone roof means fixed roof storage tank of gasoline, and almost 300 tons actually spilled in the bund. So there are containments. One is that tank itself is containment, that is we call it a primary containment. Then after tank is overflown, then it comes to a dike. Dike means the bund area. That area, so bund itself is a secondary containment, and there are tertiary containment after the bund. There is a storm water drainage line or sort of that. So that sort of containment is there, 3 layers of containment. And to tell you very frankly, that incidents of gasoline overflow has gone from primary to secondary to tertiary and gone to the road outside. So that means all three containments have failed. I will show you how it has failed. So this is very very pathetic situation, that our protection system did not work when it was required. So 300 tons were spilled into bund, and then this has happened for 40 minutes. It was going on. That means there was no response for 40 minutes to isolate those tanks or something, or plug those holes through which it has gone to the secondary and tertiary containment. It has gone out. And CCTV footage also shown that low-lying vapor cloud actually has happened for a wide area, and particularly it has gone to offsite. And you know the source of ignition? The source of ignition is some vehicle from outside road, the offside road. So such was the situation. And then total area of the cloud was almost 100,000 meters square. Can you believe this? 100,000 meters square area was under the cloud, and cloud height is almost 2 meters. 23 tanks were on fire. in total 23 was on fire, but actually it started from a tank number is 912. I will show you that. So only from one tank it has caught fire. The fire spread to 23 tanks, and it lasted for 5 days, and a huge quantity of water and foam were used. You know that water was exhausted and water was brought from far long places through hoses and pipelines. So it was a real challenge to carry out firefighting. Although there was no fatality, but 43 people were injured, and because of the vapor cloud, the residential area and commercial area all got damaged, and total damage was something around $1.5 billion. It was estimated, right? These are some of the photographs. See, this is what I was talking about, the secondary containment, the burned wall. You see the hole here, and the pipe has gone through the burned wall. This hole, very easily this spilled liquid can go and find through this and go to the road. So that has actually happened, that these burns are not actually properly sealed, particularly the joints area. So secondary containment actually failed. So what are the sequence of event? One is that overflow of the fixed roof tank. Fixed roof tank 912, as I was telling you, it was a overflow through the vent, because it's a fixed roof tank, there is a vent. So it has gone through vent. Then spillage of gasoline happened, then vapor cloud formed, then there was an ignition, and then vapor cloud explosion occurred. So this is the sequence of events that has happened. You see the contour. If you can see the contour, this is the tank 912, and all the 23 tanks have caught fire subsequently, the secondary fire. The first it started from here. And the tank on fire, to tell you very clearly, the no amount of protection which was put there in a fixed roof tank, your sprinkler system, your everything, water spray system, any system, foam system, whatever you make it. So those things will not work, because tank on fire, you forget about all protection system, because the first thing it will do is that it will melt and fall down. So this is what has actually happened. You see these trees around. These trees are responsible for the vapor cloud explosion to occur, because there was a confinement, and as if some sort of restriction was created, and this explosion has occurred because of this. The inquiry report says, the investigation report says, these were responsible for the vapor cloud explosion to occur. Okay, now how the overflow takes place. Overflow of the tank is a dangerous occurrence, particularly the petroleum storage tank. So because there are nowadays there are two levels of level measurement system. One is servo, another is radar system are there. Now that there only the servo gauge did not work. The high level switch did not work. The trip did not work. Trip means that it should stop pumping. A pump should stop. It did not work. So or maybe the what is called the high level, if it is there, then it should stop the inlet valve. That did not work. Then failure of secondary bond, as I was telling you, particularly the joint area. And the tertiary containment. Tertiary means the drainage system. That has actually helped to cause spreading of whole liquid outside. And dense vapor cloud, particularly low wind speed, as I was telling you, it has happened, and something around 100,000 meters square area has been covered. Ignition is from a pump house. If I go back to this earlier slide, you see this is the pump house. This is the pump house. If you can see my cursor, this is the pump house. So it has found ignition source from this pump house, it believed. And then because of the trees, the detonation took place, and this huge devastation that has occurred. And huge losses also have. And you know, all the 5 companies were prosecuted, and they gave a lot of compensation, particularly. And coming to this petroleum fire of Jaipur, that everybody knows that, but only one thing is very, very important that the first, when kerosene tank was lined up, no problem was there. But when MS tank was taken trying to take on line, then that hammer bind valve that has actually leaked, right? But the SOP has not been followed. The SOP was very clear that first this MOV should be, body valve should be opened, MOV should be opened, and then hammer bind valve should be what is called made on or rotated. Okay, means open. Meaning is that without opening the MOV, they have opened the hammer bind valve. That caused the leakage of MS, motor spirit. That huge quantity, it has occurred almost, and the first person who entered, he has overcome by this MS. MS means, motor spirit is like a sort of a alcoholic effects it has got on the people. Or alcoholic effects means it almost paralyzes the central nervous system. So that way, when the almost totally person is within the vapor cloud of motor spirit, then he got unconscious. Okay. Now the second person who was trying to rescue him, he has also got overcome. The third person who went there, he has got also overcome. And the fourth person who was supposed to be there, he was not there on duty. He has gone somewhere. So the control room was unmanned. So and let me tell you, this shutdown valve, which was there in the near to the field, near to the tank, but it was not connected to from the control room. So the from control room, from remotely, you cannot close those valves. The shutdown system. That is very irony. That from control room remotely you cannot do that. You have to go there only, and nobody can go there because there is a huge vapor cloud that has formed. Almost 1 hour 15 minutes later, 1,000 tons of MS got released. So you understand that nobody could actually approach there, and particularly the source of ignition was thought to be, as per report, is administrative block or a vehicle coming from on the road near to the installation. So there are this fire continued for 11 days, and there are 12 casualties and 200 people injured, and many has been evacuated. So all the 11 tanks caught fire subsequently. See, this is what is this very important sketch. See, this is the tank, and this is the MS tank, and there is a MOV, and there is a hand operated valve here, HOV. In between, there is a hammer bind valve. So the SOP is very clear. First, open the MOV and first ensure that this is open, and then it should be open. But sorry, MOV should be closed, and then hammer bind valve should be open. But what they did is that MOV, they have opened first MOV and then hammer bind valve. Then means this line was full of MS, and hammer bind valve has got an opening on the top. It was found, and that is why nowadays there is no use of hammer bind valve. This is totally banned, not to use hammer bind valve, because there is a design defect. There is an opening on the top, and that has caused what is called like a spray MS has come out. Okay, so as I was telling you, 20 tons of TNT, it was approximately, that means 1,000 tons of MS, it has caused 20 tons of TNT. So you understand the devastating effect. 11 tanks caught fire actually, and then it was taken a decision that because all the protection system has gone, so there is no use of trying to put off fire. So it was allowed to burn all the things before it is exhausted itself. So MS was coming out like a jet and causing vapor, because it is a highly vaporizing substance. So you can understand that almost 1 hour 15 minutes this release was allowed to happen, or the situation was such nobody was there to further isolate that, and God only can help. So nobody was there to further isolate that, because everybody is overcome by MS vapors. So it allowed 1 hour 15 minutes. So that means 1 hour 15 minutes it did not catch fire before that. That means the ignition sources were not within the plant. It was from outside, and that is the reason, because it has expanded, and it has gone out, and then it has caught fire. You see the LFL distance. The lower flammability limit distance is almost 323 meters. 323 meters sufficient for a petroleum depot. From offsite, it can very well come the ignition source. Okay, this I was talking about. I've already talked about this. The 5 psi overpressure has been created because in Jaipur, many commercial establishment up to an area of almost 3 kilometers is damaged. Glass broken and all this. So all these effects are due to this overpressure. 5 psi, 3 psi, 2.5 psi, 1 psi. So when we actually seen the after the what is that called incident, this was actually risk assessment has been done again. You can find out this one, this blue line, blue circle is actually the 5 psi zone. 5 psi means the heavy damage can be caused here, and the 50% casualty will be there within this. Okay, similarly, this is 3 psi, the green one. This kind of what is called overpressure situation can occur. Okay, and almost 2 kilometer area windows have been smashed, and devastating effects are occur, and losses almost $60 million. Okay, probable cause, as I already described all this during my discussion, that one of the 4 shift persons were not on duty, were available on duty, but he has gone somewhere, maybe for some personal job or something, and so control room remained unmanned, and there was no written SOP. All by practice it was going on. This I was talking in the beginning. All by practice it was going on. Whatever the way they do, they do. So there was no written SOP there. Is very, very important. MOV opened before hammer blind valve is reversed. So this is a flaws in the SOP, not following the SOPs. Okay, and then they were not having any fire suit or BS8 breathing apparatus set, so that they could not enter the cloud area. See, I'm really going fast because I want to finish it quickly so that you maintain the time. So this is the hammer blind valve, you see. This MOV and then hammer blind valve. This is reversed. When this is first it is reversed and then it is opened, so that the material comes here. And there was found a design defect here. So it can go through a small opening and come MS can come like a jet, and this has actually happened. Okay. Now, what is that investigation said? Investigation said, as I was telling you, that hazard assessment must take into consideration those scenarios. This is very, very important. Then hammer blind valve should not be, there is a design defect, should not be used. And dual level systems, level gauging systems should be there. Nowadays, all tanks are having this. And after that, MB Lal committee report has clearly said that. And particularly that emergency control from the control room was actually made defunct. So had it been there, so somebody would have done that, although nobody was there, but somebody would have controlled that from the control room, but it was not there and nobody could go into the vapor cloud. So in such situation, the emergency control room, particularly emergency shutdown system from the control room, that needs to be working. So that this is another learning. And also there is a delay in response because everybody is overcome by this MS vapor. So there is a delay in response. 1 hour 15 minutes is too much. If you see that vapor cloud situation, as I was telling you, that 5 minutes is sufficient for causing a vapor cloud explosion. So 1 hour 15 minutes, you understand. This is the MS tank on fire, some photographs. This is some photographs you have already seen. I'll come to the last one, this incident. There's only one slide of this incident. This has happened in Uran, okay, in September. So, it was hydrocarbon accumulation in the OWS field. OWS, the oily water sewerage pit. So the pit is normally it is flowing with waste oil and all these things, but with water. But if some leakage takes place and the material comes hugely in the storm in the oil water sewerage pit, and those pits are actually opening, and the opening. So through this opening, all these vapors have come out, and it was an early morning situation. So you understand low wind situation, as I was telling you. So a vapor cloud formed, and particularly in the drain itself, and then exploded. And it was continued for 2 hours. Fire incidents continued for 2 hours. 4 persons actually died. This was really, really pathetic on that 4 person was died. 3 of the fire people have died also, and 1 company people died, and 5,000 people was evacuated from within 1 kilometer of the plant. And source of ignition, this was again debated a lot, but I did not see the report, but it was thought to be that fire tender has gone there, and one of the fire tender actually got stuck or maybe stopped in between. So and then they tried to start the restart the fire tender. So in the restarting procedure, the spark might have been caused, and then there is already vapor cloud all around. So it was possible that. So what is that final? Worldwide, we have seen the numerous unconfined vapor cloud explosions, because without vapor cloud explosion, this devastation effect will not be that much. So vapor cloud explosion, all fire people, all safety people, they are all worried about vapor cloud explosion, particularly in the petroleum sector. So one learning is that the majority of the vapor cloud occur in low wind condition. So we have to remember that we have to take special precaution during morning hours, during early morning, late night, that during winter. So we have to be very careful. And it has been seen that sudden bursting of or catastrophic failures were not responsible for so many vapor cloud explosion. But the small leakages continued over the period. That means it is the continuous leakage, like Jaipur 1 hour 15 minutes. Those are actually responsible for creating vapor cloud explosion. So this is the learning, one very important learning. Okay, then vapor cloud explosion is very, very important, is that if we are allowed to accumulate the vapor cloud is another important thing. That means isolation should be before, and it should not allowed to accumulate, and lot of restriction should not be there. That means if it is happening within a, let us say, a turbine hall, or maybe something enclosed spaces, so these things will be effect will be more. And then flammable zones almost 500 meters. So we have to remember that in case of a vapor cloud before explosion, 500-meter area is the most dangerous area. So devastation will take place within that area maximum. So we have to see that this does not occur. So it was found that Bunsfield and Jaipur actually deflagration and not detonation. As I was telling you, deflagration was the most likely cause of this vapor cloud explosion, not detonation, because detonation is of different nature. Then finally, the risk assessment should take care of this low wind condition, and that most of the time what we see is that we use neutral condition. Neutral condition means neutral stability and 5 meters per second, what is called wind speed. Normally we take. But the low wind condition means what is the stable atmosphere, type F, and those who are understanding me, there are stability classes A to F. So what is called the low wind condition means less than 2 meters per second. So those scenarios also need to be considered. Okay, the area will be much more. The effect area, consequence area will be much more. Normally, people try to not to show that in the risk assessment, but those things need to be shown after these incidents. Okay, then almost any vapor cloud, research has found that 2 to 3 meter depth. Suppose if it is happening and there is some congestion, then explosion can take place. So 2 to 3 meter is nothing. In Hajira, this is also another vapor cloud explosion. I have not put that in this studies. So it was almost like a height of a on the roadside, that light post height. The vapor cloud was formed. So you understand that how much time it took to make that, or how much time this isolation was not done. Okay, and this is very important. And with this, I thank you all for your patience hearing, and I hope I could give you some inputs specifically, but many more case studies are also there. So we can keep it for future or for any other discussion. Thank you very much for your patience.
Thank you very much, sir, for a wonderful presentation and giving insight into so many important incidents that has continued. So without wasting time, sir, there are a few questions, sir, that has been raised by the participants, sir. I will ask you, sir, one by one. So the first question, sir, am I audible?
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Yes, Raju.
In case of, sir, yes, sir. The question is, sir, in case of rig fire, what are the steps to evacuation to save the life? What are the steps for the evacuation process when there is a rig fire for disaster or explosion in that kind of scenario, sir?
No, rig fire means you are talking about blowout, basically.
Yes,
blowout
sir.
Blowout is the major scenario that can happen in a rig. There are many other scenarios of fire, but blowout is the biggest scenario. So in all these cases, there is a concept called immediate danger zone. So there is an immediate danger zone after this blowout. That's almost 500-meter area. 500-meter radius should be taken into consideration as a danger zone. Okay, so that means normally our area is very little, up to 30-meter area, 30-meter radius. But in case of blowout, the 500-meter area is taken in. Sometimes it may be less, but this is a what is called this is a rule of thumb, that 500-meter area is to be taken, and people should be evacuated from that. Again, wind direction plays a very important role in evacuating the people from there. Because the heat radiation will come. Again, risk assessment, if you do, you understand that how much area is coming under intense heat radiation. Now, heat radiation, something around 2 kilowatt per meter square, 1.5 kilowatt per meter square is tolerable by a person. But if it is more than that, then there will be burn injury. So we have to see that how far is the distance where this heat radiation zone is 1.5 kilowatt per meter square. Are you getting my point? So from that calculation, we can know how much area should be evacuated. There are many other evacuation techniques are there, evacuation policies are there. I think I should stop it here.
Yes, sir. And sir, there is one more question from Ravi S. Sankar. His question is, sir, what is the, like, in short, what is the effect of plantation, like if trees and all? So like you have discussed the example of that Boonsfield sir episode. So could the impacts could have been lesser if the plantation were less? Or
yes, very nice question. Yes, very nice question. And these I have been harping on, even risk assessment also are harping on that some amount of congestion is required. The research says that congestion could be a shade, it could be a shade, a congestion could be a building, congestion could be of any time. But nobody thought before Boonsfield that trees could be a what is that called? Closely put trees are actually the congestion that can cause vapor cloud explosion. So that from Boonsfield we found out this one, and it was very clearly established that had there been no trees around, or maybe the sparing trees, not You have seen the trees there is neatly, closely built trees. If that sort of thing is not there, then maybe the vapor cloud explosion possibilities would have been less. They say that, but it is not that only the trees are responsible for congestion. There are many things responsible for congestion, but trees are also like that. You are very right.
Thank you very much, sir, for a wonderful presentation and this wonderful discussion also. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you so much.
Yes. And now for our last presentation, we have with us Dr. Saurabh Dalal from World Health Organization, and sir will be talking about the importance of emergency preparedness and case study of Tughlakabad hazmat accident. Over to you.
Uh, Good afternoon, everyone, and I hope I'm audible properly, Raju.
Yes, sir. You audible,
Yeah.
sir.
So I would like to ask a question first. Should I speak in English or should I mix it in Hindi and English both?
Any options, sir? Both are okay, sir.
Fine. So let me also share my slide so that I can share. I will be quick, and since I know we are running behind a bit behind schedule, so when we talk about emergency preparedness, most of us usually talk about that something could have been done. Can you see my screen, Raju?
Yeah, sir. Yes, sir. It is visible, sir.
So now it's full screen.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So I will be talking on the importance of emergency preparedness, and it's usually said that when we talk about chemical emergencies and when we talk about a country like India, it is always something that people are not very much comfortable with, and even a lot of times the preparedness of our country has been questioned. Being a country in which when we are a part of a history where we can say that one of the largest chemical industrial disasters ever in the history happened in our country, can there be something good? So of course the good comes over a period of time, over a period of excellent preparedness when we do, and when we cohesively stick over multiple years and invest huge amount of money and time and resources into preparedness, and definitely, and then if we want to see results, then only a lot of good results are visible in front of us. I'm going to take you through one of such case studies that usually the Indian mentality says that in a country like India, even if a bus accidents or a road accidents with involving more than 10 people happens, there are at least few casualties. So in a case of some industrial accidents and industrial emergencies and where hazardous materials are involved, it is always taken for granted that few casualties will be there. So I think when in the year 2020 we are following the Sendai framework, which absolutely targets on zero casualties and zero mortality and zero morbidity, that also stands true for chemical emergencies. So hence our preparedness should be such and comprehensive that even if multiple events are there or even multi-hazard events are there, like any natural event triggering a chemical emergency, at that time also our level of preparedness should be such enhanced. And as we move ahead, our country also aims at such level of showcasing such level of emergency preparedness, not just within the region, but also to our neighboring countries and teach them. So now it's time to take a bigger role and focus on a lot of different issues of preparedness. I am Dr. Saurabh Dalal. I represent emergency preparedness, and I'm an national officer for emergency risk and crisis management with the World Health Organization. And prior to World Health Organization, my experience was working with the National Disaster Management Authority, where on the front end I was the part of this particular response operations. So a lot of previous speakers over past 2 days have spoke about different hazard experiences in India. But if you look at the multi-hazard map of India, if we uh, through this particular slide, if you see, Madhya Pradesh seems to be one of the most safest part of the country, where it is away from the borderlines, so safe from cyclones and tsunamis, away from the northern Himalayan belts, or safe from good amount of hill and mountain related disasters like landslides and other, away from the desert area, so away from the dry zone. Most of the even it's away from the river zones of the country. So and many river originates there and doesn't culminate there. So it's also area which is safe from flooding. But if you see in these days, and if you go through the history, it's always says that then the Bhopal gas tragedy is one of the most crucial disaster and one of the most largest disaster of India. So even in a safe zone, we are not safe because it's not just natural hazards, but also man-made hazards or industrial and other emergencies. So the term that we use for this type of comprehensive preparedness is called CBRN, chemical, biological, and radionuclear, as well as a new terminology added to that is explosives, CBRNE emergencies. So a comprehensive approach to CBRNE emergency preparedness is quite required for every country now. A lot of fallacies exist with regards to the CBRN preparedness. A lot of people think that it cannot happen to us. So even like for example, India has around at this point of time around 1700 major accidental hazardous zones across the country, where we have a lot of industries dealing with thousands and billions of different type of chemicals and gases. And still the most of the mindset of the people is that it can happen to any other people, but it cannot happen at my industry or my site. uh, some people also spread on the wrong fallacies that they are so deadly that the victims are, if it gets affected, will die anyway and there is nothing we can do. That not only holds true for the CBR and emergencies which happen because of accidents, but also stands true for uh, weapons of mass destruction, or if these agents, see chemical, biological, radionuclear, or explosives, are used by some terrorist agencies or people having malintentions. So equal level of preparedness for both the possibilities is there, and all these fallacies in this year 2020 stands wrong, since our preparedness in long run can definitely save us from a lot of this type of emergencies. So if you want to do something, for example, if you want to make a change, it should be a mass movement and they should feel its need. I will give you two examples here which are very relevant at this point of time. If I or you would have decided to clean the whole country, it would not have been possible. But Prime Minister leading the movement of Swachh Bharat Abhiyan and then involving each and every person within the country, then it made it a mass movement, and then you can see a change happening at a very broader level. At the same time, a small suggestion, and this is what we have learned from our one of our experiences. People living in a good amount of strata of society, in a middle or a higher economical class of the society, are not used to with a lot of difficulties. So they have a lot of comfort zone, and they have never imagined themselves being a disaster victim themselves. So to sensitize these people, even children are never exposed to those sort of difficulties. And when in real time scenarios, as you see across the world, there are a lot of natural as well as man-made uh, emergencies happening. And when children are faced to that sort of difficulties and they are not sensitized to this sort of activities in the past, it makes them very difficult to face the difficulties, and it has a very very long standing impact on their mental as well as physical behavior as well. So just as an idea, uh, whenever you conduct a mock drill next time, involve the families as well. Just make them go to a nearby shelter whenever you do a mock exercise of a chemical leak or something. Most of the chemical industries within our country have residential complexes within the vicinity or very nearby area. So there is a most likelihood that if there is a bigger scale explosion or something, an emergency of an unprecedented scale, these families are also likely to be get affected. Sensitizing them would not take much effort, but involving them would give you much more better results. So, and how to involve them in a very creative and since they are involved in this entire mock exercise. I saw a very good example when we did a mock exercise in one of the area near Muradabad in Uttar Pradesh, where they provided those all who participate in a mock exercise were provided a lunch box, and on that lunch box it was written disaster meal, and along with, and it was given to them as if they were victims and they are getting a kit where they would, how they would receive it in form if they are in a shelter camp. So, and along with that box on the back side, there were do's and don'ts written. So it's a double reinforcing and in a very simple language. So making maximum use of the opportunity, there was a very good sensitization that happened within the community. So the motto should be help yourself to help others and help others to help themselves. So that is how we create a mass movement. So I would not go because a lot of speaker would have spoken earlier about the Bhopal gas tragedy, but of course it is one of the most unfortunate event that our country has ever seen. So and after this, over a period of 35 years, we have learned a lot of lessons, but and a lot of comprehensive preparedness has gone across in the for raising the levels of industrial safety across the country. But nonetheless, we frequently see a lot of other events as well, like Jaipur oil depot fire that happened, the Surat industrial accident that happened in 2013, the East Godavari Gale accident that happened in 2014, and a very recent accident that happened with regards to the Vishakhapatnam, and such incidents is overstrain the already overburdened system when they are facing a double breath of biological emergencies, and then a gas leak that happened in Vishakhapatnam added a lot of pressure on the system, and mobilization of the response team, which were already involved into COVID-19 response, added a lot of toll to the uh, public health systems as well as the district administration as well. As the industries are now restarting, there is an adequate amount of SOPs also released by the National Disaster Management Authority, and of course plants have been lying idle for few months, and now when and few of them again restarting, even at a very smaller scale industries, the safety of those all elements need to be retrospected and checked upon before going into operations. I will give you an example which is a real time story of 6th May 2017, when a chemical response happened in Delhi. There is a area called uh, Tughlakabad, where there is a container depot, and the entire city waked up to a chemical spill. So the most important part is that a lot of events, such events, happen within the country, and it involved around 603 people. I would tell you the outcomes of that event later on, but this was a very dangerous event, and more than 500 school kids were uh, taken to different hospitals and were affected. So the chemical involved was 2-chloro-5-chloromethylpyridine, which was of 60% concentration. So there was a container which came overnight, and then about 3:40 a.m. in the morning, it was stored in two chemical containers near the Tughlakabad depot, and they came out of the depot and parked the containers uh, before the areas in a rural area. So nearby there was a small village and there was a small school. So the containers were standing, and both the truck left at around 3:40 in the morning. The driver had parked a dripping truck near the wall of school. So about at around 5:30 a.m., the both the trucks left for their destination, and the destination was in Sonepat in Haryana. So for around 2 hours, these trucks were parked over there, and there was a continuous small leakage. As a general person, if you and me would see an oil spill, a smaller amount near our two-wheelers or four-wheeler parked in front of home, the immediate reaction of a person would be either to wash it with water or either spill some sand on it. Obviously was the obviously was the reaction with regards to the school authorities and the security personnel of that school. When they saw a chemical leaked from a container, they immediately uh, tried to wash it away, since the school was about to start in the morning at around 7 o'clock. Uh, the chemical become hydrophilic, and as we know the rules, it went into the direction of the airflow, and it affected a lot of people. So there is a Rani Jhansi Secondary School, and a lot of people initially suspected that there was an LPG leakage, but then a few of the girls come in the schools complained of nausea and stomachache and vomiting, and then they were. The best part is it was a Saturday, a non-operational day for the system, but nonetheless, a lot of amount of training has gone in and around Delhi. And since I was involved as a part from the NDMA EOC as this particular response we initiated, and as usual, the NDRF teams were alerted, but because of Delhi traffic scenario, it took a lot of time for NDRF to reach on the site. So the scenario unfolded at the emergency calls were received by the fire department at around 7:35 a.m. Immediately, the two fire tenders and one hazmat vehicle were rushed to the incident spot. So then the NDRF 8 Battalion Ghaziabad received a call, and immediately a team consisting of around 34 people and CBR and trained people were rushed to the site at around 9 a.m. The team took around 1 hour 40 minutes to reach the site, but before the team reaches, the preparedness on behalf of civil defense and one of the volunteers trained over there for triage did a wonderful job. He took the and even before the NDRF, the SDM and the local authorities reached there, and they did a wonderful job in transferring the victim to the nearest hospital. The scenario was controlled in one particular manner which was very effective. Was it request the person who took charge of that area requested the people not to apply their brains at the moment, because since he was trained and he did the triage and sent the people by whatsoever means available to the nearest hospital, and the sick were transferred to the nearest hospital, and those with considerable less amount of injuries or less symptoms were transferred to the hospitals far away. The best part was the hospitals that were involved, the were pre-prepared for this particular thing. And we are talking about chemical emergencies, and the dividend came from the hospital preparedness, and that is health sector emergency preparedness that Delhi has been doing since past 12 years. So all the hospital had their hospital disaster management plan. All the hospital activated their hospital networking between the each other facilities. And the most important thing was the every hospital, as a usual scenario in India, having a bed capacity of 20 beds, took around 70 to 80 patients, and all the people were all the students were treated very efficiently. The best part of this scenario was that on the same day, around 475 students were discharged on the same day, but few others, treatment prolonged for 3 days, and around 16 or 20 girls were intubated and were kept on ventilators because they have severe inhalational injuries, and they were discharged probably after a week, and they were transferred to higher centers like AIMS and other Safdarjung Hospital. The NDRF came and then did their job wonderfully. So by around 3 o'clock, the NDRF team completed the entire decontamination process of the site. So initially, 164 students were admitted to various hospitals, and as you can see, Majidia Hospital, ESI Hospital, Batra Hospital, and all other nearby hospitals, they admitted the patient. They did so well and managed every one of them so that we didn't had a single casualty. The outcome of this particular incident is on a positive note is, in a place like India, where we have around 603 people involved in a particular incident, we don't have a single death because of the management of the entire system, because every component of the preparedness, whether it's a district administration, whether it's an NDRF, whether it's on the side of industries, or whether it's on the side of authorities, everything happened in a very synchronous way and together over a long period of time. And the response carried out over even a weekend, the result was very good. uh, we didn't only stop there. There was a trekking of the truck happened, because it could leak eventually over the way, and the truck was traced all together through the Sonepat where it reached, and even at a place where the truck driver stopped in between to have a cup of tea, even that area was identified, and decontamination was carried out even there. And unfortunately, there was no casualties even at that place on the way to Haryana. The legal actions carried on, followed by punishment to the industries and to the importers as well. But usually such events happen in our country on a very often basis, but it usually involves a less amount of people. This was one such event. Since the slum was also located behind the school, a few people of the slums also got affected, and they were also treated out at various hospitals very effectively. The for example, the highlight part of this particular thing is uh, Batra Hospital or whether ESI Hospital, they all have a bed capacity of uh, 10 bed or 15 bed in their emergency departments, but still they were able to manage patients in around 50 and 18 numbers, and this is where it shows their capacity and their preparedness early on had paid them a good rate. And there was enough networking of the hospitals. When the hospital's capacity was full enough, they referred them to other places. Usually such events happen, and we follow up quite stringently after that. We also, as the Sendai framework earlier mentioned, it says that there should be no mortality, but we also were concerned regarding the morbidity. Like the girls, they were who were intubated and were put on ventilators, they also should be uh, free of any residual illness even after they are out of the hospital. So we made sure we did a follow up with them, and then did a airway check after around a period of 3 months, and there was no residual illness in those girls. So this proved out to be one of the very ideal events in a country like India, where we have an incident like Bhopal gas tragedy. There still can be an event where 603 people get affected, and the outcome of that particular incident is zero mortality and zero morbidity. This re-emphasizes our faith in preparedness, and it pays in a long run. Now we have to build upon our mistakes, and despite of this incident happening in Delhi, if the question to ourselves should be, if this happens in any other part of the country, are the comprehensive systems in that particular area are equally prepared or not? So, and one of the mistakes that we do, that if we manage events quite well, but we are very weak in documenting them. If I would not have been involved in this particular response, and if it had, I would not have been telling you this story, probably this could not have been believed. So we didn't make that mistake as well. So we, unless and until you document it, it's not a history. So we made an effort to get this thing particularly printed in an international journal, and in a form of a paper also it is available with all the details of that particular incident. It's not a case study if you don't document it, and that was our intention after going through this entire exercise. So all the parts of emergency preparedness work well. So now, for doing all this preparedness, where do we get the guidances from? So we have NDMA guidelines on chemical emergencies, NDMA guidelines on biological emergencies, and radionuclear emergencies as well. So the NDMA guidelines focusing on chemical emergencies are focusing on hazardous material transportation, chemical terrorism, as well as chemical industrial accidents. So it also identifies the roles and responsibility of nodal agencies and ministry involved and all the stakeholders concerned. So, and what are the roles and responsibility of each stakeholder that have been, it focuses on mainly those aspects like what is your role within that particular company, what is the role of your department within that particular company, and what is the role of that particular company within that particular community where it exists. So this, all the three aspects of the personal preparedness, the departmental preparedness, and overall community preparedness are covered in this NDMA guidelines, which are a very good guiding source for all of us. What we have to do next is that we have to, first of all, before going ahead, we have to have a belief in ourselves, a belief in our systems, and believe in what we are doing, whether we are doing it for just for the sake of doing our jobs, or for the doing it for the sake of overall safety. even at the personal level, have a stock of your personal equipment and supplies. Know what is available, where is it, and how to get it. Concept and there are trainings and concepts like incident response system and incident command system, which if you apply, if you are regularly part of your disaster management plans and drills that happens at your institutional level, I think a lot of emergencies in future also can be met. That is very live also with regards to COVID. Those parts of India which have particularly invested in preparedness have really done well in management of COVID-19. Wherever the system were weak and the health systems were not strong enough, the number of cases have even rise in the past and will also rise in future. So preparedness plays every time. What we need to do as of in future is we need to have a larger picture and bigger good for all. Need of a better network to roll out our the good amount of work that we do. If you are an industry, if you are doing some good job, try to involve the neighboring industries that are with you. At least they would be taking being a part of your learning process. They would also take away some good uh, clue for their improvement as well. So there is a lot of science, but now we also need to insert a lot of smartness into things that we do. We have to be more reasonable as well as relevant. We can't do a copy paste of the plan of an industry that exists in South India and replicate it in North India or vice versa. So, and this has happened in our country. That's why this is a very ready example which I'm giving. So, your plan should be very reasonable, relevant to your particular scenarios, and if you are a responsible officer, you have to explain your actions. So taking responsibility and not blaming it on others is the thing that we as Indians have to add in our culture of preparedness, and constantly keep reinventing ourselves, adding horizons and value addition to the science and the cause that you are involved in. So I would say never play as an isolation as a speciality. Stop blaming it on others and for doing something good, we have to step out of our traditional roles. Disasters will not just happen in some other states and countries, it's equally going to affect you. And as we all know now, this is a time and era of data collection and data management. So if you are not doing it, don't rely on your colleague that he will be doing a data collection and analysis. You have to be a part of this particular thing as well. And if you have done something good, showcase it and share it with others. So what we need as a smart goals in addressing gaps in resilience is we need some inspiration and international cooperation. So learning from other countries as well is much more required. At our own local level, what we need to do is threat and risk analysis or need analysis and networking with our stakeholders and partners. So development that we do in our industrial area or industries, and taking a lot of your industry also employ a huge amount of youth. Take a detailed demographic dividend and involve them into, because they are the future leaders and they will be shaping up the industries of tomorrow. But those industries should be safe, and making a culture of safety by institutionalizing it and implementation of best practices learned will give you a long term resilience goals and adapt to become a more safe, smart, secure, and healthy and resilient. So, and that is a personal goal which each and every one of us should achieve. It's not like giving lectures would make everyone a very perfect person, but by practicing safety on a day to day basis, a very small example with regards to data safety and data security. If you lose your hard disk or your computer or your pen drive, you would be panic or hesitant for number of couple of days, but just a small amount of investment of time in making your data safe by doing backups and regularly updating those backups would make you such a smart, safe, secure, and resilient. So that will not add on to one more um, perspective of safety in life. So I thank you all for hearing with us patiently, and I request all of you to participate in building CBR and resilience. It's all about dealing efficiently with man, material, microorganisms, and mind efficiently. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir, for a wonderful presentation, sir. And there is a few questions they raise, sir. It is asked by Mr. Baski. His question is, sir, how does World Health Organization assist Government of India in plan and policies formulation?
Plan and policies for?
Sir, in any plan and policies formulation, for government, how does or how World Health Organization assist Government of India?
Yeah. So this is a very, very good question and very, very relevant question. I will give you a very good example of this. You know, this has been an issue with a lot of countries that people don't get people sitting in air-conditioned offices usually make policies for the country, and this should change. For example, I'll give you a very good example with regards to COVID-19. So the primary WHO assist all the government agencies in all the policies that happen. For example, with regards to COVID-19, there are around 419 policies that have come up across the country. So we have been a part of all the policies that the government of India is make as a part, because the World Health Organization is a part of the Joint Response Committee formed by the government of India that oversees the entire COVID-19 response. So essentially, we become a part of each and every policy document and the guidelines released by the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare, NDMA, and all other technical relevant agencies. At the same time, what we now want to do is, and as an emergency managers, one of the concepts that we have learned in our books is risk-informed decision making. So this is my personal experience, which I would like to share, that WHO and even personally me got involved in risk-informed decision making while we were doing a planning for COVID-19 management in the urban slums. For example, when we were preparing for Dharavi, there were a lot of like people sitting at the level in Delhi would assume that there would be no hand washing in Dharavi, and people would not have access to toilets and other things. The situation is entirely different. When we did a risk perception survey in those slums, we got to know so many different things, and that really influenced the making of policy when we made it for the COVID-19 management in urban settlements. We saw that they have a good amount of wash infrastructure, but what they need is a good amount of soap and other hygienic products which can facilitate their hand washing and personal protective behavior. So this is how risk informed, and then again targeting people through mobile and print publicity in those areas during the period of lockdown is not a good idea. But if you make use of cable networks and the local channels available there and involve community in spreading the awareness themselves, then I think the policy could be disseminated and the awareness regarding those entire issues with pertaining to COVID-19 could have been very, very better, but percolated among the community. This happened in the as a part of the policy that came out from the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare, and WHO entirely supported in doing risk-informed decision making. And this is one of the greater case study which we carry along for a good period of time to share with our participants. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir, for your wonderful answer, sir. Thank you. I hope the answer will satisfy the query of the participant. Thank you very much, sir, for joining us.
My pleasure. Thanks to all the participants and thanks to NIDM for inviting us. I wish you all good success.
Thank you, sir. So with that, we have come to the end of technical session, and moving ahead with our valedictory session, I would request Mr. N.N. Ray, Chief General Manager, Head Training, IPSHEM Goa, for his valedictory address. Sir, over to you, sir.
Oh, thank you. Respected Major General N.P. Bindal Saab, VSM, ED, NIDM, Professor Surya Prakash, Head, GMRD, Sri Atul Garg Saab, ED, HOI, IPSHEM, distinguished speakers, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, I thank and congratulate all of you for participating in this 3 days training program on disaster management. The whole 3 days have been very, very informative, and number of topics have been discussed, which encompasses the full spectrum of management of disasters. Here, if you see that disaster management is very important for saving our lives in case of whether it is a natural disaster or a man-made disaster. Now, looking into the disaster, as you have gone through the last 3 days sessions, that basically what is it? It basically focuses on organizing the resources and making the people aware about their responsibilities, which are to be carried out in case of an emergency turning to disaster, so that the impact of the disaster can be lessened on the human being. It has got a humanitarian aspect as far as the impacts are concerned. Methods that were discussed throughout the sessions basically revolve around this theory, that is, it starts from mitigation, then preparedness, response, recovery, and rehabilitations. So these are the different steps through which this whole cycle revolves around. But the takeaways from these sessions are that the disasters have different forms. The risks involved with each kind of disaster are very, very separate and distinct. And in order to fight each one of them, we need to have a very specific disaster management plan in place, so that effective actions can be taken, responsibility can be delegated, and overall communication system, which is the backbone for any disaster management, is in place and is executed in the proper form. So overall, all these aspects, including logistics, because logistics also plays very important role for the effective management of disaster, have been covered in all this training program. From ONGC side, if you see for the oil exploration and exploitation activities, efforts have been made that a true glimpse of the disaster should be given to the participants, and for that effective presentations have been made by the distinguished speakers. We have talked also that what kind of training programs need to be included as far as the ONGC is concerned in the oil sector. The training programs with the help of NIDM, how we can come out with some strategy to formulate and develop training programs, training modules, which can effectively address the issue of disaster management in petroleum sector. So that has been highlighted and brought into the knowledge of the top management. So overall, I feel the objective of the training program has been thoroughly achieved. I especially thank all the NIDM personnel, the organizers, for taking interest and making this training program a very effective training program, giving a very good structure, and such kind of strategies and initiatives will definitely help industries in totality to come out with a very effective sort of plans which can address the real issues involved with the disasters in the specific area, particular to oil and gas operations and other industries. At last, I would like to share that basically in order to make any program or any campaign effective, it is the people, it is the mass which need to be made aware. And this awareness with the programs that NIDM and in collaboration with ONGC, we have done this program, is definitely going to help our people making aware them in fighting such kind of emergency scenarios, and also preparing them to come out in the big way to estimate, to predict, and to respond to such kind of situations in future. So this, I thank all the participants for taking keen interest. I thank NIDM for their active support, and we look forward to NIDM for our future course of action also. Thank you very much. Have a good day.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you very much, sir, for a wonderful valedictory session and gisting all the 3-day action in such a small effect. And sir, on behalf of I will like to inform that this is not this training program is the first of its kind, and this is not the end of a beginning. But I would like to mention that this is the beginning of a new series of disaster management training that will be carrying on future also. Major General Manoj Kumar Bindal could not join us in the valedictory session due to his prior engagement, but he has conveyed his best wishes to all the participants, and he has also wished us for the future programs, future endeavors also. So with this, we have come to the end of this wonderful, I must say, 3-day training program. And in the end, just to conclude, I would like to present a vote of thanks to all the dignitaries of this 3-day training program. First of all, I would like to extend my thanks to Sri GBV Sharma ji, IAS Member Secretary, NDMA, who accepted our request and made his gracious presence in the inaugural session of the program. And also, I must express my gratitude to Major General Manoj Kumar Bindal, ED, and Professor Surya Prakash for providing innovative and encouraging environment, moral guidance, and continuous enthusiasm and valuable suggestion throughout our NIDM endeavors. And we are very grateful to Sri Atul Gargji, Executive Director, Head, IPSHEM ONGC, Alok Kumarji, IPSHEM ONGC, NN Ray sir, for their presence and also for their enormous cooperation and support in organizing this training program. I couldn't thank enough, and I must mention our deep sense of appreciation to our distinguished speakers for their presence in technical session, and they have wonderfully highlighted and enlightened our participants with their vast knowledge and experience. And I must convey my thanks to our participant also for joining us in this 3-day training program and making some time from their busy schedule and listening to the speakers, what they have to say, and learning. And also I hope that they have some key takeaway point that they can take from this training program, and so that they can discuss that point with their families, with their colleagues, or in their office, so that they can further disseminate the information wherever possible. And I must mention my thanks to my GMR division team also, Mr. and our IT team also, Mr. Baji, Sovit, Gaurav, for their cooperation in making this a very successful event. So with that, we have come to the end of this session. For the participant, there are a few announcements that we'd like to make. First of all, your attendance is automatically recorded by the Cisco WebEx platform, so you don't need to worry about your attendance. The second thing is for the feedback, a feedback link has been shared in the chat box. You can go and fill up the feedback link. Please provide your feedback. We will also feedback to all our distinguished speakers. If you have any feedback for any speakers, anything, please share your views there. And last, one more thing, if you are unable to access that feedback form, we will share that in our group also and through your mail also, so you don't need to worry about that. And the assignment that has been provided to you, we have given you the email ID where you have to submit. So kindly submit your assignment in the given email ID from, you can submit it from today onwards also. Thank you very much for joining, everyone. So I would like to thank on the behalf of NIDM also and IPSHEM Goa, ONGC Goa also. Thanks everyone for joining us, and please be safe, be healthy, and please take precautions about the COVID, because it is not over yet and we have to fight together. Thank you very much for joining, everyone. Thank you. Dr. Harjeet Kaur, I think we can end the meeting for today. Thank you. Thank you, ma'am.
Okay, Raju.